How Coretta got King and JFK united, and changed the Democratic Party. Whenever Senator Elizabeth Warren, D.Mass., utilized Coretta Scott King's words to express her resistance to President Trump's lawyer general chosen one, it was not really the first run-through a Democratic lawmaker saw the significance of King as a social equality image. At the stature of the development about 60 years back, Martin Luther King Jr.'s significant other was reached by another representative from Massachusetts. It's a call a few history specialists say assumed a part in setting what is presently a standout amongst the most faithful bases of the Democratic Party, dark voters. It was October 1960. Ruler was a pregnant spouse whose husband had been captured on an activity charge while driving a challenge in Atlanta. John F. Kennedy was a presidential hopeful who was confronting a tight race against Richard Nixon, and who comprehended that there were a noteworthy number of dark votes to be won, especially in the mechanical conditions of the North. Around then, dark voters tended to vote in favor of the gathering of Abraham Lincoln, a Republican, and were distrustful of the rich representative from the Northeast. Republicans vote to censure Elizabeth Warren, saying she upbraided Sessions' character. Kennedy and a couple people in his battle saw an open door. Harris Wofford, a Kennedy associate who later turned into a White House social equality exceptional colleague, saw the benefits of connecting with Martin Luther King Jr.'s better half and addressed Kennedy's brother by marriage, Sergeant Shriver, about it. An open explanation was too politically dangerous, so they picked a watchful telephone call, Harvard University history teacher Frederick Lojevall said. Shriver, knowing the thought would be disliked by different assistants, held up until he was separated from everyone else with Kennedy and encouraged him to decide. Kennedy should be induced, Lojevall said. He revealed to King that he felt for her significant other's predicament and that he would do what he could to get him out of jail. After Kennedy's sibling, Robert F. Kennedy, called the legislative head of Georgia and the judge accountable for the case, Martin Luther King Jr. was liberated. The arrangement worked. In view of that telephone call to Coretta Scott King, Kennedy picked up to the underwriting of Martin Luther King Sr., a long-lasting Republican and a Baptist minister who was supporting Nixon. Since this man was eager to wipe tears from my daughter-in-law's eyes, I have a bag loaded with votes, and will take them to Mr. Kennedy and dump them on his lap, the senior King said. Voters, as well, paid heed. Read the letter Coretta Scott King composed restricting Sessions' 1986 government nomination. The call, a clever proceed onward Kennedy's part, ended up being a weighty signal that resonated inside the dark group, Lojevall said. What was at first intended to be prudent telephone call got to be distinctly open, and in late October 1960, Kennedy created an impression about it at an off-the-cuff news meeting. She is a companion of mine and I was worried about the circumstance, Kennedy said. More than 70% of dark voters voted in favor of him, as indicated by the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum. I think he had certifiable sensitivity for the way that King had been detained without genuine cause, and it was useful for his crusade, said Robert Delack, a history specialist who concentrates on American presidents. They're not totally unrelated. All the more extensively, Kennedy's own mediation in the situation of a social liberties pioneer assumed a part in the move of dark voters from the gathering of Lincoln to the Democratic Party, Delack said. It began with Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal, which made financial projects for the unemployed after the Great Depression. African Americans, the excessively influenced aggregate, profited from those projects. So despite the fact that Roosevelt, a Democrat, had shied far from standing up about social equality and against lynching in the South, his New Deal made ready for the huge move of the dark vote from the Republican Party, Delack said. Kennedy, Delack stated, developed and reinforced that hold. I figure you can state it's one stage on that direction, Lojevall said.